Hello and welcome to step 8 of the trailer for the M1070 tank transporter and M1000 trailer. Gonna go through this real quick, at least as quick as I can, and just so you can see, we still have the trailer too. I just didn't want it in this picture. But starting with this real quick, this is this end of the trailer right here, and as you can see where we were having problems last time with the glue, just sanded it down lightly, but it's all fine. Looks just fine. Wanted you to see that there are positives, and you can see that this all glued in really nicely. All these parts are glued in down here, so we've got a nice, even though it's not completely flush in every single spot, it's a nice solid construct. This is not going anywhere. This feels good. So going right into it. On this end, I'm not gluing these just yet, but here we have these parts. I found that these needed a little extra cleanup for seams, and also for whatever reason when they were injection molded, there's more seams on this side. There's some flash and cleaning off where the ejector pins were. Just keep an eye out for it. It might have been this kit, but all they're doing is getting glued down right in here. They just settle right in. So this flat piece here, and you can see there's a little bit of a space before these triangle shapes, goes right behind here, so the triangle shapes will fit right on there. Now, rather than putting glue on right away, what I was noticing is there's a fair amount of left to right play in this. And I get the feeling that this should be all the way over to the side, and this should be kind of clamped down like so. So that's what I'm going to try and do. Just because I want, again, everything to be nice solid. So I'm going to put some glue in there and let that start. Now what I did notice when I was kind of originally dry fitting these parts is, even though I can push this all the way this way, and I can put this part in here and get this started here. Yeah, sure, now it's got to be difficult. What it feels like is that things shifted a little tiny bit to the left. So this might be something you want to do when you put this centerpiece in, because I'm a little tiny bit wide on this side, and it's a little tiny bit tight on this side by, you know, just a smidge. I'm going to be able to get this to work. I did before, but it takes a little bit of, there we go, a little bit of pushing this in. But the important thing to note is these triangle pieces, while they do line up with this piece here, they don't center perfectly on it, even when everything's nice and tight. So just be aware that that's the case. Otherwise, I'm going to put some glue, at least on this side in the seams, just to get the glue started. And this is why I wanted to wait, so that I could kind of get things in position on both sides and get a feel for it without grabbing a lot of stuff. Now, I'm not too worried about filling in this particular crack right here, although I may put at the end here, put a little clamp there, but it's not going to cause any problems on this side. And remember, this is going to be at the bottom, upside down, so you're not going to see this as much. So I'm not as worried about this as I would have been if this had been the actual deck. But I am going to make sure that there's a decent amount of glue flowing in there. Everything's going to be rock solid when it's done. There may be a few little gaps here and there, you know, expected. And like I said, I may clamp that down like that. Expected, but nothing too crazy. And then you've got these two tie down points. They do need to be cleaned up on the edge right there, as well as on the bottom. So do your best. These do get kind of beat up when they're chaining things down, so you don't have to be perfect. But the parts do fit tight, so make sure you get them in there well. And I'm not as worried about it. One thing I'll do is I'll just put a little dab of glue on that part so that it doesn't look like a knife has been trimming it down as much. And there you can see what I didn't do is trim out the flash in the hole. I'll let the plastic cement go in there and start to work on it. Otherwise I'm just kind of pushing that in a little bit. Even with that, it went in pretty good. And a little bit of glue on that edge, and that part, this right here, is done. Now I want to say a little bit about this next one. These pieces right here, and I'm going to just take one without the shackle, go up into the bed from the bottom. It looks like. No, I got to be wrong about that. No, I'm right. Anyway, so this plays out kind of odd, but anyways, these things go in with the shackles on, upside down, so they'll be sticking out the shackle side up through the deck. So you have to put them together now. You can't wait until some other time because these other parts go on. And when you're putting the shackles on, you got to be careful in pulling them like this to get around there, and so that the little pegs can go in, because they will break. Now I kept that as a way to show you what I'm doing to do it. Now the parts, when they come off the sprue, are attached at the bottom. I just nipped them off with extra because you don't want to stress out the parts or shave them off. But I thought I'd show you the easiest way I found, instead of a knife, is to take the nippers and just clean this up like so. Now this part will be facing down into the deck, so it's probably not going to be as visible, and then with that done, you can just hit it real quick with a file, cleans it right up. Now notice the orientation. This is the large knob right there, and then you put it with the hole, the keyed piece or whatever, to the side, and I gently spread this just enough to get it in the holes, and then kind of push it back together a little bit, just enough. I'll probably want to glue these because they're pretty darn delicate. So with that one that's broken, put a little glue on there and there to start gluing it together. Just a little bit. Just to get it started, and then I'm going to take this. Now this is what broke it, was when I was taking it apart. So I'm going to put this together, and then I'm going to push this together. Now the important part is that you have the ring to the side, or it's not a ring, even though it's a circular part of it's part of the pin, but it's a catch, or oh, it's hard to say what that is. It's at least in my line of work, what we can do with them is you can use it, you can stick your finger in it to pull it out. It can also be used as a spot for unscrewing this, because this is supposed to represent a screw-in bolt. So it screws through there, that would be the end of it, and that's how it stays attached. There's usually a pin on this side then that keeps it that way. But you want to make sure that it is put in correctly. In other words, like this, the big knob on that sticking up and the hole on that side, because there is on one side, but not both sides, a little ridge on the hook. So I've got this all together and that's glued. I'm gonna put a little more glue on there to keep that. I have not glued it to the piece yet. I'm gonna put that to the side, so we're keeping an eye on it. Now, moving on to the next step. I'm going to keep this till the last because they're two independent parts right down here. What I want to do is go in and put in these air bits right there. Then I want to go in and do the these shackles right there, and then put these on, and we'll talk about those. So these air bits, as you see here, go on, and they're not all in the same spot. So, and all I mean by that is that up here in the front there's an indent in the plastic to put it, and then there are these I don't even know what to call them, half indents, where these go right in there. So that's what you want to pay attention to. Is, I mean, this is kind of on the end like these are, but this is a full indent on that end. And you do it with the longer end sticking towards the edge. And this is one where I'm probably going to need my forceps to get that part in there. So anyways, it is tight enough that it just sticks right through my forceps, in between the piece, the point. To get in there and to get it level. So you want it level across, down in the indent with plenty of glue to glue it down solid after it's done, and the longer parts sticking towards the outside. There, I put some extra glue on that one just to start. Now we've got some in there. This will probably be a little bit easier, I would imagine. You know, you imagine things. Just like that. So they're kind of, I'm going to say, perched. Now, these parts do have a seam on the sides that was almost impossible to clean up. I did not do an awesome job, but they're going to be hidden underneath here, and once you get paint on it, it's going to be hard to see it. And if you do not dry brush to accentuate the detail, and I don't know why you would, because when this is all basically put together, it's going to be, it's a very busy undercarriage in here. I just did not worry about that in particular. Okay. I'll be honest, I've grown up as a kid watching Star Wars and watching how ILM built all the Star Wars ships and stuff from plastic kits. I have to admit, this would have been a great kit, I think, for them to get parts. These always look like little guns on a starship. But anyways, that's just me wool gathering a little bit. So, looking over where these go, because there's 6 of them. looks like they go with the holes here, here, and here. Now, I don't see anything that says to put them on the other side. Just make 6, no cement, and then it shows them going in. I have not skipped step 9 yet, so what I think the best thing to do, considering what we're doing, is to just put the 3 in and hold the other 3 in reserve, because I'm pretty sure they're going to be on the other side. But the way these go, I mean, there's no sense borrowing trouble. These go in, and that large latch goes in there, and then there's just a small little smidge on this side as well. So that tells me that this is supposed to be pretty rock solid once it's all, yeah, I say that a lot. Once it's all done. And these are still free. Now, I'm going to flip this over carefully. I think this is why they didn't want them put on later, is because you'd have to put them down, pushing against that glue part, and that may not be the strongest at that point. So just be aware, be careful. So, anyways, that's what I'm going to do, is put these on, and again, it's just going to be the 3, even though we make 6. That's what they say to do. I mean, I feel the temptation to just do all 6 of them, trust me. And if that's what it turns out to be, then you guys will have the upfront information that, oh, well, you know, I can just put all 6 of them on. Don't have to worry about it. But I will gladly be... Now, this one goes backwards. It's a good thing to note. The other 2 had the large plastic piece going forward. Now, there's only one way to put them on, unless you want to, you know, cut plastic out and mess it up. But just warning you. There we go. Now I'm just looking at this one because it doesn't quite feel the same as the other 2. I mean, it's there, it's square, it's level, but there, it feels like it's slipped down a little bit more. That looks good. So just gonna keep an eye on it, check things out. Try not to glue these hooks in. Try and keep them free. I'm assuming they want them free for a reason. Maybe you can tie down. And be careful of the piping that you put in earlier. This one right here will interfere with that. And it looks like, at least from the other side, it looks like there'll be more of those pipes to go in. And it looks like this one might interfere as well. So just something to keep an eye on for the future. Now that we've done that, these pieces go on. These go on right here opposite these cuts on the side. And they just slide in underneath the piping. This gets a little odd, because as you can see, it's got to go in underneath there, and then it's got to get that to slide in. So it snaps in pretty tight. You got to kind of flex that deck just a tiny bit for that one because of the piping going over the top. This one, you don't have the piping, so it's a little bit less of a flex. And you can see there's just a little bit of the edge of the flash that I was talking about. And I'm not going to worry about it. I'm more worried about getting this put together. That one right there looks like it went together okay. They look like they're touching. These are just not quite as tight apparently as these two down here. And that might just be with a little bit with how this main spar goes on compared to the rest of it. I'm not going to worry about it because these are just dry fit for the moment. When I put the glue down, that'll keep them all in place. So I'm going to put this one in back where it belongs. Now I'm going to start at this end, put the glue on top, the glue on there and there, not the whole way through, just those two spots so far. And then down, right down here where it touches the plastic for above, and then I'm going to just see how it glues on there. Just kind of press it a little bit. There might be a little squishiness of glue coming out. It's going to be interesting. There's going to be a little bit of a gap because they pushed it out so that the molded on wiring or pneumatic lines, it doesn't touch that. But everything is touching that should be touching, so we're good in that regard. And you just want to go around and put down glue where, put a little bit more in there, where it all touches so that it can start to fuse without getting too crazy. That should keep things in place where it's loose. I'm kind of going backwards on this one. To see if it makes a difference, because these are getting tighter. So that's why I'm not worried about one end falling out like I was on these sides. Just want to try and get all those spots where it's supposed to touch. That'll help a lot. Across the top. Then I'm going to do this side here. And this side over here. And this part right here. That one right there. And just keep an eye on how loaded your brush is, or how much glue you've put on. Same thing here. Just keep an eye on where everything is so you're not touching other parts that have been glued on earlier, specifically right here, right there, right there. They're not touching these frames, but like right here, I knocked this one out of alignment. Got to go back in, make sure that's all okay. And I'm just checking to make sure I don't glue these things in, or that they're not going to fall out. And that is part of an artifact of sometimes you open them up enough to get them in. Oh, there it fell apart. That's why that one was a problem. So now, rather than go through the trouble of gluing that on to the piece it just came off of, I'm just going to give this a little bit of extra space to take it off. The big divot is going that way, so with the big divot on this side, we want the circle to go towards the outside, this little part here. So now we'll find out if we can put these on safely from this side. Looks like it. So if you have any issues with them, you can just pop them on in that direction. Looks like it'll work. These are all nice and tight. That's square and centered, square and centered, square and centered. Everything's all nicely glued on. So with that, carefully putting it down so that those hooks on, or the things on top, don't get squished. Gonna glue this one together too. So herein lies one of the inherent problems with this kit is these tie-down hooks, U-shackles, whatever you want to call them. The plastic being used is kind of soft, or well, actually no, it's kind of brittle, so it leads to these kind of issues when you bend them even a little bit, and they break. But that's what glue is for. All right, let that dry for a moment. So what's going on with, I'll let that dry. I'm not worried about it because we're going to use it next step. So what's going on with these boxes is they have some really wicked attachment points. I cleaned them up as best I could and sanded them down a little bit, but you may have to put some putty in there and then sand it down. And the only reason is because they're on the outside here. It's going to be noticeable. You don't want it to look too bad. And these are steel cubes in real life. These are the front legs, but they don't get beat up as much as you might think for two of those. So you may want to do the extra little bit of work to make them look good. But anyways, pretty simple otherwise. Glue the feet onto the leg. I don't think of them as legs personally, but yeah, glue them onto the leg. It doesn't really matter, they're square. So if you want, the feet have to go front and back like that. If you want to have the attachment points front and back, you can do that. You get them side to side, but they're only going to show if you have the feet down and the trailer off the truck, which, you know, makes for a nice diorama, don't get me wrong. But otherwise, these things are going to be up inside and you're not going to see them. So, you know, don't do any extra work if you don't have to. If you plan on having the trailer attached to the truck, let it go. So the important thing is these get attached with the tab going into the trailer and the lock mechanism or the latch mechanism towards the outside. These go at right angles to the latch mechanism. So they go like this. And that's how they should look. The foot should not go all the way up in there. They should only go part way like that. Put it in, put a little glue all the way around it. Put it all the way in. That's pretty much how the instructions want, because there's no way to immediately, so it'll sit like that on there with the leg. And these do get a little off center. I mean, they're not perfectly straight back and forth, but there's no way right now with the way this is set up to lock the legs down. So if you did use it, you'd probably have to make twice as long, get some extra cubage to put in there, something so that it pressed on it. Otherwise, you're going to glue it a little bit in there. It'll be sitting there, and all of a sudden it'll go thump. It probably wouldn't take much weight. Just like in real life, if you don't have the pins in or the cylinders on, and you go and you take it off the truck, even if there's no load on it whatsoever, eventually it falls back down. Gravity will have its way. So, again, this just gets glued on like so. So in this case, it's going to go like this. Just make sure that this goes in perpendicular. So this is on this side, that goes that way. Put it in, it works. There we go. So why can you glue it this way and not have to worry about attaching it? Well, all you're doing is holding up the foot pad and keeping the cylinder in there because they're hanging on the side. while those are drying real quick, we'll come down here. What we need to do is fold this PE, and you'll see on one side there is no etching, and on the other side there is the fold crease and the 2 dots. I'm just going to do this real quick with that. 90 degrees, like so. I don't know why you have PS7 and PS8. They look identical to me as far as I can see. That there's no side. There's no, I messed up and didn't get a part here. There doesn't seem to be any reason that these would be offset. I mean, I can't find an offset or anything. They look identical as parts. So I'm not exactly sure why. Now I'm going to do this carefully. This is 8. That's 7. Oh, there we go. 7 has a bigger hole than 8. Keep them separate. There you go. It's not really all that discernible until you really put them side by side like that. I hadn't paid that much attention. I just noticed that they didn't look the same. The hole through the photo etch is a little bit different. So we've done that. I cleaned these up. These did take a little bit extra cleaning because of the attachment points and the seams. So holding it like this with this end pointing up, this photo etch goes through, and on this side, a little glue, get that in. So it's right underneath. And then I'm going to hold that little bit right there, and there's a slightly larger cylinder on that side. That should center onto. Like so. And then before putting it on the model, just making sure that it's level on both ends and looks good. Looks good to me. Let that start to dry a little bit. Take this one. This time I'm gonna, now that I know what I'm doing, put that glue on there. Slightly smaller, or as I should say, PSA or PESC8. Put that on. Now, if you're worried about this being directly 90 degrees and perfect and all that, I mean, do your best, but you can eyeball it. In real life, these cylinders, when they get put back on, are not always put on, you know, with the nozzle straight ahead in the bracket, because these would be mounted on the vehicle and as a bracket. Unless there's some sort of guide that holds those airlines in or something like that, it's open to interpretation, so you might be off as much as, you know, 5 degrees in either direction kind of thing. It's not super precision as far as how they bracket in. Now, these will go in here. There are some indentations on the underside of this piece. They don't have edges. They're just little etched in parts. That's where the brackets glue on. Now, going back to our work here, and again, being careful, there may still be some non-dried glue, and we don't want our brackets. I don't remember. We don't want them falling off, but we want to put our trailer feet on. So again, the detail of the latch, the lock latch, goes on the outside. The I'm not going to call it a peg, but that's all I'm thinking, goes to the inside. But what you're doing is putting it in there and then pushing it in so that that large piece of plastic, that strip, catches on the inside in here, and that'll set your height. So it should be about that high off of it. Now, in real life, These are welded really solid because they bear all the weight when they're on the vehicle. So, in real life, there would not be a gap on the side like this, or that would deadline it, because that would indicate serious stress. But it looks like you want to be careful pushing down on it, because that's still lightly glued. It's okay. Just checking it side to side. Now these feet do have a little bit of give to them in real life, so you can have them a little sloppy floppy. More what I'm worried about, and I don't know if you can see it here, is making sure that this is also pushed in all the way. So it's got to be all the way in that corner up against all the plastic parts getting glued. You don't want it off of it at all, because like I said, that indicates damage and that deadlines the piece of equipment. You cannot go around like that. I mean, I guess you could drive around with that, but you'd never be able to drop the legs. And that is a safety hazard for I'm sure every single state out there wouldn't allow you to just drive around like that, because you'd never be able to drop the trailer in an emergency situation. And that's a no-no. In case you're wondering. But most important are making sure that this thing is square. And you can have a tiny bit of leeway as far as, like, on this side I was doing it, and you can be a little off to the inside, but you can't have a gap. That's what I'd be worried about. And then just kind of check it. It's hard to do it because this thing is so long, but look down the line, make sure that at least your tubes, the channels that the legs go up and down in, are straight, and then you can adjust the feet as you want. Now, let's do the last part here. All we're doing is putting a dab of glue there and there, picking up one of these and using that upswung part that goes, there we go. This upswung airline piece goes to the interior and that way, so away from this right here, and I just tapped it. And you don't have to be precise, but I'm trying to do this so that those little indents are at least mostly covered. But sometimes it's hard to see, so if you have trouble seeing it, you're not the only one. Once you put the glue on, it kind of takes the easy seeable part of it out. So what I try and do is make sure I can see one and put one in place, and then I can just kind of guide the other one, and that's pretty good right there. So that's what it should look like. Here's all of our parts. They're still square and in place, and those clamps are you know, I know what the name of them is. I'm losing it tonight. It's been a long day. Anyways, they're still movable. Everything's glued in place. Checking all the parts that we glued on, that nothing got hit, warped, moved. Looks good. So I'm going to carefully, without putting it on top of the other ones, place this down here. Let that dry, and I'll see you all for step 9.